This video shall cover the remaining excerpts from the Thalassemia International Federation Guidelines 2021, in which I shall discuss common complications, definitive treatment, monitoring, which is very important, prevention, and shall finally summarize the two videos together. So, short stature in thalassemia children is multifactorial due to chronic anemia, transfusion-related iron overload, chelation toxicity, and endocrine causes like hypothyroidism, hypogonadism, growth hormone deficiency, etc. But these children, they attain a lesser linear growth velocity when given exogenous growth hormone compared to other non-thalassemic children, and the probable reason is likely growth hormone insensitivity in them. So we have to counsel the parents right from the beginning. Endocrine disease requires periodic evaluation, especially in adolescents, that is after and equal to more than 11 years of age. Delayed puberty and hypogonadism are the most common endocrine abnormalities, but insulin-dependent diabetes mellitus, subclinical hypothyroidism, subclinical adrenocortical dysfunction, and hypoparathyroidism also occur. Combination chelation therapy with deferoxamine plus deferriprone reverses endocrine complications very nicely, as in cardiac iron overload. Infection, must remember that it is the leading cause of death in thalassemic patients. So you have to counsel the parents whenever there is fever, they should bring the child to the hospital. This is mainly because the iron hemostasis plays a great role in the genesis of infection, and in thalassemic patients it is disturbed. It requires prompt initiation of antibiotics and temporary discontinuation of deferoxamine, which is the most prone to cause infection in these patients. One must also know the clear-cut indications for splenectomy and the preventive measures for OPSI, that is opportunistic post-splenectomy infections, which I shall be discussing later. Osteoporosis is seen in 40 to 50% of the thalassemic patients as they age, and one must start monitoring bone mineral density annually, especially in adolescent children. Biochemical markers like NTX and CTX and BLP are also there, but they are mainly used in adults. So, right from the beginning, physical activity should be stressed upon, and there should be an adequate intake of calcium and vitamin D along with bisphosphonates later. Along with this, there should be a prompt treatment of diabetes mellitus if it is coexistent, and hormone replacement therapy should also be done. Now we know that to assess liver iron overload, LIC, that is liver iron concentration, is the best parameter, as I had discussed in the previous video, and we must use MRI sequence R2 to determine this. Screening for HCV, HBV infections should be done, and hepatitis B vaccine is a must for thalassemia patients. Now, optimal transfusion regimens and iron chelation should be practiced to delay splenomegaly, and indications for splenectomy are very specific. They should not be done as a routine. These are increased blood requirement which prevent adequate control even with iron chelation therapy, hypersplenism, and symptomatic splenomegaly. Whenever required, a laparoscopic approach to splenectomy is preferred over an open approach. Immune prophylaxis is required against the capsulated organisms like Streptococcus pneumoniae, Haemophilus influenzae B, and Neisseria meningitidis at least 2 weeks prior to the operation, and they are repeated post-operatively as recommended. Annual influenza vaccine is a must, and chemoprophylaxis is sometimes required with lifelong prophylactic antibiotics in patients who are at high risk for pneumococcal infection, and this is done by giving oral penicillins or macrolides. So right from the childhood, we must encourage physical activity. Dietary iron should be restricted, especially in patients on low transfusion regimens, to prevent the risk of iron overload in them. Calcium and vitamin D supplements are recommended as a must. Folic acid supplementation, vitamin E rich diet, that is eggs and vegetable oils, vitamin C supplements, L-carnitines to be used in caution with patients with thyroid dysfunction, and zinc and vitamin D levels must be monitored every 6 monthly. Curative treatment option for thalassemia patients having an HLA compatible sibling is allogeneic hematopoietic stem cell transplantation, in which case you must remember two things: that this option should be offered to the parents even before the complications due to iron overload develop, because then it becomes very difficult. and it can be done either using the bone marrow or the cord blood of the donor sibling. In case an HLA compatible sibling donor is not available, then gene therapy can be done and the gene used is Zynteglo. Now, luspatercept is a new drug which is being used for the pharmacotherapy of thalassaemic patients. It is a recombinant fusion protein derived from immunoglobulin G, which causes enhanced RBC maturation, and it is also used for treatment of myelodysplastic syndromes. But the important thing is that it is not recommended for use in children less than 18 years of age. So it is not much of use for the pediatricians, but the pediatric postgraduate residents must know. Now coming on to monitoring, when the patient presents to you initially, then you have to take the height, weight, vitals and do a detailed systemic examination, especially the perabdominal examination to look for liver and spleen size. Laboratory investigations I've already discussed several times, but yes, CBC including RBC indices, nucleated RBCs or retic count and platelets. Then further second line investigations including hemoglobin fractionation using HPLC or CZE, molecular mapping, that is alpha globin gene and beta globin gene cluster delineation, blood group antigen typing and HLA typing for hematopoietic stem cell transplantation. On follow-up monthly, the clinical parameters you must monitor are weight, height, vitals, spleen size, and very important is to note down the transfusion regimen the child is on and the medications which he is on and whether or not he is compliant to those medications. You must also monitor CBC, nucleated RBC counts and new RBC antibodies which might have developed due to previous transfusion using the indirect antiglobulin or the indirect Coombs test. CBC might have to be done fortnightly if the patient is on deferriprone. 3 monthly you must monitor weight, height, ferritin especially after the 10th transfusion. The detailed indications I've discussed in the previous video. SGOT-PT, renal function tests including serum creatinine and urine for microalbuminuria especially if the child is on deferrasirox. 6 monthly you have to monitor growth velocity and Tanner staging which is to be done especially in adolescents, calcium, phosphate, SALP and vitamin D3, and 12 monthly you must look the child for bone deformity and evaluate lab parameters, the markers like HBsAg, anti-HBs, anti-HCV, HIV, bone age in children less than 10 years of age, and auditory and ophthalmologic evaluation especially if the child is on deferoxamine. In addition to all this monitoring, children more than 10 years of age require additional monitoring which includes T4-TSH and glucose tolerance test to be done at least annually. LH-FSH and testosterone can be done as indicated, for example if the child is having delayed puberty. 2D echocardiogram, DEXA scan and T2 star MRI also need to be done annually. Prevention is of two types, primary and secondary. Primary prevention is done in individuals who are yet to start a family. Secondary prevention in individuals who have already have a thalassaemic baby and we need to screen the ensuing pregnancies. This can be done before the next conception, or if the mother has already become pregnant, then at least in the first trimester you must screen her for beta thalassemia trait. If she is thalassemia trait positive, then you must screen the spouse and accordingly counsel them for prenatal diagnosis depending on the results. So the screening tests which are used are RBC indices, Nestrov, that is naked as single tube red cell osmotic fragility test, and Menzel's index, the calculation of which I have already discussed in the previous video. So to summarize, on presentation you have to take a detailed history of symptoms, previous transfusions, family history, etc. A good clinical examination including vitals, anthropometry, per abdominal and detailed systemic examination, and monitor lab parameters like complete blood count, RBC indices, RBC count, nucleated RBCs and retic count. If you suspect the patient has thalassemia, you go for HPLC or CZE. Once you are confirmed, enroll the child in a regular transfusion regime after complete testing and indirect antiglobulin testing before each next transfusion. Institute timely chelation therapy. Do regular clinical and lab monitoring which includes height, weight, growth, velocity, spleen size, CBC, ferritin, LFT and RFT. And immunization should be stressed upon in these children with especially annual influenza vaccines and pneumococcal vaccine and hepatitis B vaccine along with other vaccines which are specially required in patients who have undergone splenectomy. On follow-up, you must do regular clinical and lab monitoring, but in addition to this, In children who are more than 10 years of age, you need to do a detailed endocrine and pubertal evaluation regularly and a cardiac evaluation also. Along with this, you must also remember the role of counseling, which is very important, the role of prenatal diagnosis, and counseling about the definitive treatment, especially if an HLA compatible sibling donor is available. Thank you so much for a patient watching and share the knowledge. Thank you.